And that's the number one thing that I hear from people all the time is, Brittany, I know what to eat. I know that I should exercise, but I just can't figure out why I can't make myself do it. You know, and there's so much shame involved in that, right? Like there's, you know, you feel so bad about, you know, about knowing what to eat and not being able to follow through that, you know, the shame and the guilt and all of the negative talk to yourself, you know, that makes the overeating problem even worse, right? And so it makes the binging, from what I've found, even worse than it is just kind of naturally. And so over the course of, you know, maybe 15 or 16 years of really studying this, I discovered that there's something called weight loss blockers. This is what I call them. So there's 7 subconscious, there's psychological weight loss blockers. And if you have even one of them, you will not be able to lose weight no matter how hard you try. Or when you lose weight, you'll end up gaining it back again. So today I want to talk about the 3 most common ones, and we'll kind of explain, you know, where they come from, why people have them. Something that pretty much everybody has. I don't think I've ever met anybody that doesn't have this weight loss blocker. So this one's called "My feelings are stuck in the food." And what happens is, so I've studied the subconscious mind for years and years, right? So like I realized that I was always attracted to psychology and therapy from a really, really early age. And so I studied a lot about the mind, and I realized that if I was going to take control of my eating behavior, that I had to kind of trick my mind into doing it because I couldn't willpower myself into following a plan. And so I learned about this thing called the subconscious mind that actually controls 80% of the decision-making power. So I was like, okay, let me learn about that. So I studied neuro-linguistic programming and all EFT and all these other things that work with the subconscious mind. And so, you know, in working with the subconscious mind so much, I'm always asking the question, you know, what's underneath this? What's underneath this? What's at the core of this? What created this? What caused this? And so when you have, you know, we've all had that experience where we buy things and we're like, oh, we can't keep that in the house, right? Because you think about it, you obsess about it, you know what's in your fridge, you know what's in the cupboard, you keep going back and, you know, eating it over and over. And so a lot of people that try to be healthy or lose weight, they keep things out of their house, right? Because it's almost like the food is calling to them, right? They can't think about it while it's in the house. They have to eat it. So when you have experiences like that, it's typically because we've had an early childhood experience with that food. So the best way to do this is to have everybody think of a food that they just love. And then the question that I always ask people is, now think back to some of your earliest memories or your earliest experiences of eating this food. Now, most people will be transported back to a time that was really positive for them. So like if it's cookies, maybe they'll remember baking their cookies with their mom or their grandma. Or maybe they'll remember going for ice cream with their dad on Sundays. Or, you know, big meals where there was pasta around and pizza. You know, there's like, a lot of families that enjoy, you know, big meals, and that's kind of how they bond and get together. So what happens is because you have because you have this really strong positive association and positive experience with food, what happens is your brain hardwires information in it says, eating this food is going to make us subconsciously remember all of those good feelings. Right? And so when cookies equates love and comfort and like grandma's love or mom's love, I mean, it's no wonder that you can't stop eating the cookies, right? Like who could ever get enough of mom or grandma's love? So, you know, if you've had a really stressful day and you just want to feel relaxed and calm, you know, maybe that was the way that, you know, your best friend soothed you when you were getting out of your bad relationship. You know, it doesn't always have to be from childhood. Too, I want to say that. So sometimes I had a woman that went on her honeymoon to Paris, and they were eating macaroons during their honeymoon. And when I was working with her, she had this really big problem with macaroons. And so we went back to, you know, when she first got married. And so, you know, that was such a positive experience for her that every time she would eat a macaroon, it would remind her of her honeymoon in Paris, which, I mean, who wouldn't want to feel like that every day, right? After a bad day. So it makes sense, right? But, you know, these are the things that nobody's talking about. And this is why you're like, oh, God, why? You know, I feel like a crazy person. Like, I know I shouldn't be eating this, but, like, I can't help myself. You know, I want people to know that it's not about their willpower, and they're not crazy. That, you know, they're not a bad person. It's just that you've got these weight loss blockers. And basically, your brain has the wrong information. So what we have to do, like, your brain works like a filing cabinet, right? So all the information that we experience, all the experiences that we have and the decisions that we make about those experiences get stored in these filing cabinets, right? And so right now, your brain has cookies and mom's love in the same filing cabinet. And so all we have to do, literally, it's actually so easy. We just have to give it different information. We have to say, no, 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 mom's love goes over here and cookies are here. And so that way, when you break that connection, you get to keep both of these feelings. So some people always go, oh my gosh, you're gonna take my cookies away from me. I love my cookies. And you can even tell like the way people talk about food, like I love my donuts. That's how you feel when you love a person, right? Not a food. So what you do is you just give your brain information. You just say, okay, mom's love is here, cookies are here. And then you can have the cookies, but without going overboard. You can have just 1 or 2 cookies and feel satisfied and go, okay, I feel calm and relaxed. I don't need the cookies to feel calm and relaxed. Yeah. I know that was kind of my intention with coming up with these techniques, was that I know for me, I couldn't sit there at a dinner table and watch everybody in my family enjoying cake and not share in the festivities. Like I just felt so left out if I did that, right? And so my whole desire has been to shift the brain chemistry so that you actually don't want it, instead of having to force yourself not to want it. Which, I think is how most people teach. It's like, no, I shouldn't eat that. Don't eat the chocolate. We're going to be good. And yeah, I just think that that's exhausting, frankly. Okay, so let's talk about the second most common weight loss blocker. So this one is called the I don't want to make them feel bad weight loss blocker. And so what this one is we'll do another visualization for this actually. So imagine you are your ideal weight and you're all dressed up in something brand new and you feel amazing about yourself. You look amazing, you feel confident, you're standing up straight. And now if you imagine being surrounded by all your friends and family members, all the people that are closest to you in your life, and everybody's looking at you and they say, wow, you really lost weight. They're pointing it out, they're noticing you and this big transformation. So in the visualization, just go around the room and look at who's upset and who's got a weird reaction that's making you feel strange, right? So some of the things I hear sometimes is, oh, well, if I lose the weight, I'll make my husband feel bad. Or maybe he'll feel insecure. Or maybe my feelings for him will change. Maybe I'll have this new body and I want to go out like on the town dancing and see if I can get a better deal, right? So these are all really scary things that people subconsciously think. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that these reactions are real, right? Everybody in your life will probably be really supportive of you if you lose this weight, but it just shows what your subconscious mind is thinking will happen if you lose the weight. So these are the good reasons that you have to hold on to weight. Another really common thing is that you have some friends, and the way you guys connect as like girlfriends is, you talk about your latest diet, or you complain about how fat you are, or how fat you feel, or, whatever, right? And so if you all of a sudden become successful, how are you going to connect with them, right? That's another really common one as well. And so, I just want people to notice, what these are subconscious beliefs about what will happen if you lose the weight. And, it's a lot more common than you would think. And unless somebody tells you to think about these things or to do exercises like this, you wouldn't ever think, right? Because there's a logical part of your brain that says, oh, my husband he'll love it, like everything will be okay. He won't be jealous. But there's this softer, very, smaller voice in the back of your head that goes, well, what if he's not? Well, I don't know, maybe something will change in our relationship, right? I had a woman who, she lost 60 pounds and she was like in her, I don't know, late 50s or something. It was, it was a really commendable thing that she did at, that point in her life. And her best friend said to her, you've really changed since you've lost all this weight. And this woman, she just had a heart of gold. She didn't want to hurt her friend and she didn't want to be a different person. And so she ended up putting all the weight back on because of this one thing that somebody said, right? So it just goes to show how deeply people's opinions really affect us. And unless we're conscious of it, unless we, work on it, and again, tell the brain, that's their opinion, this is my body, and I get to, be the way that, I want it to be. Unless you do that to your brain, every time this happens, you're gonna binge or, put some weight on or have a bad weekend or, whatever it is, whatever your behavior is. And the last one is something that's probably the strongest weight loss blocker, and it's the blocker that most the weight loss coaches or most people, they might know about it, but they're a little bit scared to talk about it because most people don't have a good solution for it. And what I found is about 80% of the people that I work with suffer from this. And we call it the I'm too sexy weight loss blocker. And the reason that we call it that is because it actually deals with sexual attention. So, pretty much everybody knows that, when you lose weight, men, they have a certain biological thing in their mind that they like. And when you become more shapely, you get more attention, right? From men or from the opposite sex. And a lot of people feel really uncomfortable with that. And there's a few reasons that happens. The number one most common one is that there's been some form of sexual abuse in their past. And sexual abuse in my vocabulary ranges anything from, actual sexual abuse where we know the definition of that, to anything that made you feel uncomfortable in your body. So a violation of sexual boundaries. So, an example that I always give is a little girl who was on the playground and a boy came up to her and said, "I've got these special glasses on and I can see through your clothes." And, she thought that he was telling the truth, and she thought that he could see her naked. And so, she always talked about this her whole life. And that really made her feel uncomfortable in her body. And so when you feel uncomfortable in your body, what is the natural thing to do? It's to protect yourself, right? To create a boundary, a barrier. Don't come in. You can't, this is my body, right? So we like to build a barrier around ourselves. And the most common way that women do this is through adding extra weight on their body. And, some women will add 200 or 300 pounds of extra barrier weight on their body, and some people will only add 5 or 10. It really just depends on how your psyche deals with this and how protected you feel you need to be. But this is the thing that most people don't talk about. And I also find too that a lot of women will say, well, they'll kind of diminish certain things that have happened to them in the past, not realizing that the sexual violation was there, or the boundary violation was there. So I even had recently a girl in my class whose grandmother used to always make comments about her body. And, I think as women, we're a lot more sensitive, or, many of us are a lot more sensitive than our counterparts. And we feel things really deeply. And so when somebody makes a comment about our body, or they're always pointing out something about our body, it feels really unsafe, right? And so her way to protect herself from that attention was to add extra weight on her body so that her grandma wouldn't comment so much. She didn't know how to say, "Grandma, please stop commenting on my body. It makes me feel uncomfortable." She was too young to, she didn't have anybody to talk to about it. She didn't even understand that this was happening to her. And so the only way, her subconscious, again, is trying to take care of her. In all my research, what I found with this is that the subconscious mind and the extra weight is actually trying to take care of you. It thinks it's there for a good reason. Right? All of these things that we're talking about are really good reasons to hold on to the extra weight. And so, unless somebody says you've got to lose weight or you're going to die in 2 weeks, your subconscious mind doesn't have any reason to let go of these because they're really good reasons. I'm going to tarnish the relationship with my best friend. I'm not going to be able to feel love and comforted. I'm not going to be able to protect myself from predators. These are all really good reasons for us to hold on to the extra weight. And so unless you, again, move the information in the filing cabinet, your brain has no other information other than it just thinks it's doing something positive for you.